is. We're happy and we're singing and we're colored. Give me a high five.
All right, cut and print. Beautiful, guys. Dynamite. That is.
And welcome to episode 160 of the broadcast. I am your host and moderator, the People's Champ, aka the final boss, Shop Biz Ronnie of the Shop Business. And joining us today, of course, it's just going to be the two of us, is the fantasy booking extraordinaire, Kid Ty, aka Soft Forest. And this week, he does not have a mask. And like every week, we start the show with a vibe check. So, Kid Ty, the mask is back. So since it's the two of us this week, Kid Ty, how was your week so far?
It was me doing a lot. I was pulling a lot more double duty at work this week, getting paid more for it, rightfully so. And I went home, been listening to a lot of video essays and music. So my brain's kind of been in an interesting space there. But I'm all right. The mask never left. I just had to, put it on. It's right by me at all times, like a Bible. Yeah.
Cool. Nah, I mean, this week's been pretty good for me as well. Obviously, just working through, getting used to my new job, and just enjoying. It's been some good, it's been some good stuff going around all across sports, especially with the NBA and the Emirates Cup. Feeling like playoff basketball in December, so it feels good. Other than that, just the holiday season coming in, and just working through a whole lot of other stuff. So, slowly but surely, things are coming together, for me. So that's pretty much in terms of my week. We are live. We are live on X. We're live on YouTube. We're also live on Facebook. Please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook at The Backstage Brawl. Follow us on Twitter at Backstage_Brawl. We're also on Blue Sky, the Blue Sky app at the Backstage Brawl on Blue Sky. Please check that out. And so let's get into the icebreakers of our show. So starting with the first icebreaker question, let's reshape Survivor Series identity real quick, because we had a money discussion talking about Survivor Series this past week, and I had an idea, feeling the fact that as good as War Games was or has been over the last couple of years, I feel the fact that it's kind of running the same running gag as Hell in a Cell, and feel like either they scale back on the War Games match from having more than one to having one that's important, or just basically doing it all the way together and just bringing back Survivor Series as the as the pay-per-view that it is, with some incentives. Myself and Kid Ty kind of went over about this before on the show when we had a conversation in passing, but before we went on today, we talked about our thoughts in terms of what we feel Survivor Series should be for the most part. So Kid Ty, what is your idea in terms of how to best reshape Survivor Series?
Well, it's a thorough question, so buckle up, folks. We'll be here for a little bit, but I think it's a conversation worth having. Survivor Series has had some elements that have explained its identity, but I don't think it's been consistent enough in the past couple decades to really sit there and get you excited for Survivor Series the way you probably should. We've had Survivor Series be the traditional tag match, which we'll get back to. We've had the tag match take many forms, whether it be Team Raw, Team SmackDown, two people feuding and creating teams to fight off the other stable-based teams. We've also had Survivor Series get kind of passed aside in its calendar year, where other pay-per-views will take concepts that should be used at Survivor Series to up their own pay-per-views. We saw that with the Invasion angle back in 2001, I believe. Saw that with bragging rights for 2 years in a row, brand supremacy 5-on-5 tag teams in the same year as Survivor Series, as opposed to just moving it over. We saw it with the Nexus versus WWE at SummerSlam, which granted the feud started early, so it makes sense that they had to finish it off at a big pay-per-view, but I imagine there could have been more juice to push that storyline forward, especially considering what we got afterwards. So we've seen Survivor Series kind of struggle to stand out among its big four now possibly Big 5, Big 6 peers with Elimination Chamber and Money in the Bank kind of being added to the family due to consistency. So Survivor Series, despite being the second oldest in the long-running pay-per-view premium live event roster of WWE, often gets shafted, and that kind of sucks. So we're going to try, and like I establish all this to say that Survivor Series needs consistency. That's the first thing it needs to be better. Because even if we have great Survivor Series here and there, like Survivor Series 02, God, 02 was a godsend in certain pay-per-views, I swear to God. But Survivor Series 02 being a shining light, or people remembering select moments like Dolph Ziggler with Team Authority versus, Team WWE with that Soul Survivor, another concept we'll come back to later. We've had some highlight moments. We had some standout matches, AJ and Brock and Danielson. We've had a lot of moments, but to have more memorable overall pay-per-views, I think we need to establish what the real draw Survivor Series should be, keep it consistent that way so that people know, understand, and can build an anticipation to watch these events proper. And War Games is starting that, but like you said, the thing about War Games is that the novelty will soon diminish when you have it so often, and there's not much keeping the concept fresh. You kind of walk into War Games knowing what spots are going to happen, and even if you are anticipating certain people getting certain moments, not to say any of these War Games matches have been terribly done, but there are some elements that can be tweaked to make the match even more of something you anticipate every single year. So that's what we're going to try to get into now. Giant briefing, I know, but I wanted to get all that out there because I want you guys to understand.
No. It's good that you preface by saying this because I had a couple ideas as it pertains to how the best shape Survivor Series, and one way for me personally is basically what made me think about this question so much was basically rewatching 2019, and for whatever reason 2019 stuck out to me as a moment where, like, you saw how that pay-per-view meant so much for, the guys at the time during NXT, Raw, and SmackDown, how much, like, each and every person during that match or that pay-per-view itself put on and what it meant for each brand. Like, if NXT lost this, what would it mean for them? Not saying that there would be consequences for it, but it meant something for them to be put on a showcase where their top stars can overshadow the guys that are on the main roster at the time. Seeing what Roman Reigns and Keith Lee did at that end, like it sticks out to me. Like the women, the triple threat matches, between the NXT champion, between the champions of each brand. I felt that it meant so much to showcase those on the yellow brand, those on the red brand, those on the blue brand, and it meaning something and seeing, the tally of which team won the most in that night. And I kind of want to return that to the essence of what Survivor Series meant. Because we talked about this earlier in terms of if they do continue with the War Games theme, why not have it elimination, like you said? Whereas, like, if you're not going to do the Soul Survivor type stuff in terms of the traditional 5-on-5, and you want to do the War Games aspect of it, still keep the essence of Survivor Series by keeping the elements of the elimination aspect of it in, so that when you do have a Soul Survivor, it does mean something. Obviously, much of the last few years, the War Games match itself was more so in terms of it's been more so stable based than individual based in terms of the purpose on why these matches are taking place. I do feel that I just feel that it's about time that Triple H kind of like return a little bit back to the roots of what Survivor Series meant. Like, you don't want to basically reduce the War Games into the same gimmick you had the Hell in a Cell in for each of the past, of the past decade. Because, because we all remember how the Hell in a Cell was, where, you used to have it as a specialty match, not as, it's a pay-per-view you have every year and you have like 3 or 4 Hell in a Cell matches that really doesn't really constitute as meaningful to have it. Just like this year, Punk and Drew, when they had the Hell in a Cell match, they had it, that was the reason to have that match. There was a reason for it, rather than just basically just, having it for the sake of it because it's the pay-per-view name. So I will say by that standpoint, reshaping Survivor Series, it's not a bad thing what they're doing now, but I just feel like you don't want to overdo the gimmick of the war games because it doesn't always have to serve that purpose for every match. And if it does, make it have more meaningful by having those elimination, tag, like you said, like eliminate certain people within the match, and then, whoever's standing, you have an incentive. Like I talked about earlier, what I wanted to do for the Survivor Series match, if you were to do it that way or the traditional way.
Well, hold on now. Let's give them some clarity because we know what we're talking about, but we got to explain it to the people.
All right. So I'll let you do that. So how about you explain to the people what we're talking about here with this icebreaker question?
So as Randy said, we had a little pre-game conversation earlier in the day, kind of getting ready for this show because we did want to get some concepts out to you in a nice manner. And one of the biggest concepts about war games that does become kind of annoying is the fact that like war games kind of has like a shelf life in a way where the way that it currently is right now, again, you expect certain things. You expect certain people to jump off the cage. You expect weapons to be thrown in like crazy. You expect exploding tables and this and that. And those expectations aren't necessarily bad, but the way that they're currently executed, and that's the key word, the way that they're currently executed, they're done in such a such a straightforward way. They're done in such a way where it's like it feels almost predictable that unless they're really good stories going into war games, you don't feel like you need a war games. Because if you've seen a few, you kind of feel like you've seen them all the way the WWE's going about them. And during the week, I was writing some stuff about what I'd want to do to fix war games to overall help Survivor Series. And one of the first things I thought about was elimination. And the reason why I bring up elimination is because one of the big things and critiques about war games is that you can make an argument, a sound argument, that most of the match is filler. Right? War games doesn't officially begin until all the members of each team are in the ring. And at that point, now you can pin, now you can submit, now you can knock out, now you can eliminate somebody, which means that you're spending most of the match waiting for the important people to come in. And it's not to say that there aren't important people already in the match. And it's not to say that important moments aren't already happening in the match. But can you imagine what the situation would be if you added the traditional Survivor Series elimination element to War Games? War Games matches can go by faster. You can create more drama by having a real deficit in play. What if two of your teammates get eliminated and it's just the three of you up against a whole team of five? Now you start to wonder, how are they going to survive this? The need to have a sole survivor, that spot, maybe not the need, but the idea of having a sole survivor in war games sounds appropriate. It sounds like it should be a thing. And it sounds like a prestigious honor to have, because if you're the sole survivor of a game like war games, a match like war games, that's so chaotic, it puts you over heavy, especially considering who had to be beaten to get to that point. We've seen sole survivors do really well. That was Randy Orton's identity for a while. That was something that you wanted to see out of a Shawn Michaels in Survivor Series 03. That was something that you wanted to see. Who could really outlast all these talents of all these different tiers? So the elimination element, to me, combining the traditional tag element with the War Games element, sounds like a harmony of WWE and WCW that is perfect for the fall season. It makes sense for War Games. And you can make the argument that Elimination Chamber already does it, but you could also make the argument that, well, Elimination Chamber is just a more refined version of War Games that can include tag teams, solo acts, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with picking up something from your son to make yourself better. So for me, the idea of an Elimination War Games is a great way to switch up the format and give fans even more suspense during the match, because you really don't know what's going to happen if someone can get eliminated at any time. So that's one way definitely to fix War Games and overall add more appeal to Survivor Series main event of choice. You mentioned Brand Warfare too.
Hold on, I was just reading GC's comment. So he feels like the injury rate from this past one, obviously, what he's referring to is Tangaloa, Bronson Reed, Jey Uso all suffered debilitating injuries. Tangaloa tore his muscle this past weekend. Bronson Reed injured his foot, his ankle, and Jey Uso broke his toe. All things happening within the same match, all of them doing high spots. Tangaloa, I'm pretty sure, got injured possibly during the Punk spot or just by chance.
The Loa.
The Loa. Bronson Reed obviously came from a high spot. from a high table spot, as well as Jey Uso when he delivered the Uso splash onto the table. Each of them having injuries. I think the only person that probably has a lengthy amount of time being gone is obviously Tonga Loa with the muscle tear. We're going to talk about how that impacts the bloodline led by Solo down the line when we talk about the highlights of this week on in WWE. But that's just one way to look at it from as well. And he also said traditional Survivor Series matches will be more beneficial. That I agree. This is probably why we're having this conversation in itself to begin with. I do feel that speaking on the brand supremacy.
Yes.
The reason why I kind of brought that up is, yes, I know the brands don't mean shit. I know that's how people are going to look at it, and they have every right to believe so. However, I do believe, regardless of whatever brand that you're on, whether they should hold the brand rules or not, I do feel that if you include Raw and SmackDown going at each other, whether it's in the War Games elimination match, if we do it in the way that we're talking about, or the traditional way, I do feel that the winners, both male and female, of these matches, or whoever's sole survivor, should get an incentive or an opportunity at something. Like you talked about earlier. For me, I want whoever is a sole survivor to get the 30th entry in the Royal Rumble. Yep. You had a different pivot, which I kind of like as well. You said whomever is a sole survivor or whoever has the most wins of that night, they should have more of the brand roster onto the Royal Rumble match. So yep. say for instance, SmackDown wins. SmackDown gets more roster spots in the Royal Rumble match compared to Raw. So it will be uneven in terms of having 15 men from Raw, 15 men from SmackDown, or how many men from Raw, how many men from SmackDown, and of course you sprinkle your legends here and there in terms of the Royal Rumble. This is the Royal Rumble we're talking about. So someone's going to pop up and do whatever. But from the amount that you're able to have between both shows, at least a good percentage of them, one brand might dominate the other. And I think that should definitely continue.
My bad. But that's very true. I think a lot of people have been calling for incentives as far as them reintroducing brand supremacy as a Survivor Series concept for sure. And you can make the argument for the traditional tag match. You can make the argument for the War Games or whatever variant of a tag, war versus, army versus army situation we have here. Mm-hmm. I brought up the idea of roster spots, not to take away from your idea, because I think your idea is still a sound one, but one of the biggest draws of the Royal Rumble is the unpredictability. And I know that that's kind of been played with a little bit in the past couple of years. We've had some more predictable Rumbles, but there's enough of an established benefit of the doubt with the Rumble that you will at least be surprised once, right? And a lot of fans want unpredictability. They want to see cool moments in between. They want to see storyline ties and intertwining and all that. So I don't want to take away the 30 spot, only because that is one of the most anticipated spots in the Rumble. You could do it for a specific storyline on occasion, but to do it every single year wouldn't be suitable for me, because I feel like you're not always guaranteed to have the right story for that spot every single year. You should always have like backup measures you can use when in doubt. You can't think of something, or there's not much juice to something. You could always fall back behind, like a failsafe in a sense. And I think that having War Games competitors or the traditional Survivor Series tag competitors winning GM incentives like that would give the GMs more power and more influence, and something that they can use to kind of push their own individual stories while pushing the rest of the brand. Because let's say, for example, and say some of you guys have never thought of the Rumble this way, hear me out. Let's say that 10 stars from Raw, 10 stars from SmackDown, 3 surprise entrants in general, and then 3 NXT call-ups are the main, or like some of the main ways in which this is, or rather 5 and 5. 5 surprise entrants and 5 surprise NXT entrants. So you have 10 Raw, 10 SmackDown, and overall 10 surprise entrants, but they're divvied up between possible outsiders we haven't seen in a while or NXT people. Something to that effect. Let's say that's the format of most Rumbles, right? By winning War Games, you would break up that, you would make it a lot more uneven. So, for example, instead of Raw having 10 guaranteed roster spots in the Rumble, maybe only 6 people from Raw can compete in the Rumble. And SmackDown, instead of having 10, gets 14 which increases their chances significantly of bringing the Rumble to SmackDown and winning the main event of WrestleMania, or one of the big matches at WrestleMania are guaranteed to be on SmackDown and shown in a prominent light. At least you would hope. So that is something that a GM would take a lot of pride in, knowing that they have a higher chance of winning the Rumble. And even if they don't win, the fact that they're walking in with an advantage is dope. And it also gives more credence to like getting the Survivor Series advantage match, all of the qualifiers that go in. For example, let's say you don't have a stable based Survivor Series. Let's say you have a Survivor Series where it's brand warfare and you need to pick people to be on your team. You could pick a number one contender from the heavyweight division, a number one contender from the Intercontinental or US title division, a number one contender from the tag division. So now you have 4 people for your team already, and then maybe a 5th wildcard pick if you want to have it 5v5. You could always have it 4v4. There are many different ways you can do that. But let's say we keep it 5v5 since some people are used to that. You could do that for the men and the women, because now the men and the women have the equal amount of championships technically. And even if you want to have the champions involved, you can have the world champion, the Intercontinental champion, the tag team champions, and a wild card pick. And now you have a team of 5-on-5 representing their brands. And the incentives are simple. If you do the number one contenders, now here are the superstar incentives, because they need a reason to fight too. Just can't be thrown into war by the GM without getting something out of it. If you have all the number one contenders, they get immediate cuts to the front of the line. And they get immediate title shots that they can use. So you can set up your Rumble matches that way. You have the rest of your Rumble card. You could set up a Saturday Night's Main Event card. They are guaranteed a title match at some point in the immediate future. It's up to a negotiation to set up which event it'd be, right? So you could do that. And if the champions are involved, then I would say that the incentives, maybe they get to skip a pay-per-view. Maybe they don't have to defend that early. Or better yet, you could have the champions compete against the other champions on the next event. I mean, maybe that's not the best idea, but things can be brought up. There are concepts you can think of there that would make the incentives worth it even for champions. I might not have it at the moment, but it's a start. And I think that just a start of having those incentives in general are a good thing. And with the brand warfare, maybe we can't have NXT in on it right now. But if there's one thing that NXT did show is that if you give enough juice to these concepts, you can make people care. And I think that if that effort is spread all around, again, it can only help to benefit Survivor Series. There was one more concept that I did want to talk about for Survivor Series War Games, if we keep War Games. Obviously, we could talk about whether there should be 2 a year. You could talk about that with a lot of concepts like Kings of the Ring, Money in the Bank. Should we do it, gender-based every year? Maybe the men get it 1 year, the women get it another year. That way, the men have to wait 2 years to get that opportunity, which makes it more prestigious. Same for the women, right? That way you can really push the narrative. You don't always get opportunities in WWE. You could talk about that too. But if there's one concept that's interesting to me that I feel like a lot of people would find divisive with War Games, it's actually the concept of bringing back the roof. Now, I'm not saying it has to be done all the time, because people are used to War Games a certain way. There's a whole new generation of fans growing up on a whole different generation of War Games. I understand people like their double rotation moonsaults off the cage. Yes. People enjoy their this and that. Yes. But I always err on the side of variety, because variety can open up so many different perspectives and give you so many different possibilities. And I think it would be interesting if there was a day similar to a Lethal Lockdown, which was TNA's variant of War Games years and years ago, where WWE brings War Games back to its real roots, and they have the roof planted on the double cage. And I think that there's a lot you can do with that roof as well. The idea that it would be to a high flyer's disadvantage. Maybe they can't do a sacrifice spot like that. Maybe you have a situation similar to Kalisto and Montez Ford, where you climb the roof of the cage to do an aerial maneuver, which would give us new moments and highlights there. I know some people might draw more comparisons to Hell in a Cell or to Elimination Chamber using a roof, but if done correctly, the roof can bring us back to a more brutal variant of War Games. We've seen that WWE is not shy on blood. We see that WWE is not shy on having violence be done on these premium live events. And having a cage over a structure brings you back to a time where a cage fight means there's no way out. It's understood in the UFC that you're not supposed to get out of the cage. The fight has to happen inside. But the whole point in pro wrestling for a while is that we don't want anyone else in. We don't want anyone interfering. We don't want any new elements in. You could put the weapons on the cage wall. You could bring it back to an ECW type of feel, like what they had with the ECW chamber years ago. And although that was a problem in itself, you take the good from all the concepts you see and you can make something better. So that was another idea to offer War Games. I know we've talked about it at great length here, but just some food for thought for the fans. If you guys agree with us and feel like War Games could use some additions, awesome. If you feel like War Games is perfect the way it is, that's awesome too. But these are some of the things we notice, and these are some of the things that we wanted to see improved upon so that War Games can keep its novelty and help Survivor Series.
And that's what's up. I remember I put this question on a community post on Twitter earlier this week, and one person, Dyphonian Beast on Twitter, he said, "Why not turn War Games into a Hell in a Cell type commodity, where have it be used sparingly when rivalries do collide? Have it be at Survivor Series, and have Survivor Series return to a mix of 5-5 and singles matches, no brand warfare." So he's against the brand warfare idea, but he is not against the idea of returning it to a 5-on-5 elimination and singles matches as well. So obviously he's on that side of what he feels based on that question.
Okay.
And listen, I mean, to each his own. But I do like the feedback. We had more, but I can't kind of look for. I've been looking for the last few minutes now, but I do like the fact that there's enough dialogue, especially from the people that answered that question this past week. And with everything that we know in terms of what Survivor Series, is right now, we just feel like it could be just a little bit better in terms of where we want it to be, and then some. So that's
and options are a good thing. You could have. G Circus talking about less time in between intervals coming in. Sure, you could have faster War Games matches. Another reason why I champion the elimination thing coming back. If you want to bring it back to traditional Survivor Series tag matches, sure, you can make an argument that the match that we had at Crown Jewel with the Bloodlines fighting each other the first time, you could have did that at Survivor Series as it was. Now, it worked out that War Games continued the story they started there, but there's nothing to say that the story wasn't strong enough to have a traditional Survivor Series tag match. We've seen traditional Survivor Series tag matches that can be exciting and use the environment and have a chaotic feel from the brand warfare days of 2016 to 2018. So we know that you can make it exciting beyond just the standard rules. I know some people might like War Games because it's different, but at the same time, you want to keep having a pulse with these concepts. And I do agree that, especially since most of these are faction-based, obviously a lot of the women's ones haven't been, but we don't need to see EO jump every single year. No. We don't need to see the same spots every single year. It would be nice if we had to wait 3 more years and then somebody goes, yo, I haven't seen this in so long. And that can drive sales to watch a War Games match. Because if you haven't seen it in a while, distance makes the heart grow fonder. So I think there's a lot to be said about, again, keeping variety up with that. But yeah, that's War Games, and that's Survivor Series.
All right, cool. So we can definitely move on to the second icebreaker question of the show. And obviously, 2024 is coming to an end. And with everything that we've seen this past year in terms of stars breaking out and new stars coming out of the woodworks and showcasing themselves as talent this year, who do you feel has an early odds-on favorite to break out next year as a superstar, Ty?
Well, considering a lot of these storylines are long and ongoing and usually have a pretty static form of storytelling where nothing's going to happen for a while, my hope is that we do see more breakout stars first and foremost. I think Carmelo Hayes has to be in consideration, considering he's just been building his name this past year. Couple matches with Cody Rhodes, the series with Andrade. He's in a position where it's okay for him to grind to the top. And that will only serve to benefit him if they choose to give him something more of substance in 2025. He's been having performances that have made people keep him on their notice, keep them on their radar. So I imagine he will. I think another person who will be a breakout star next year will be Jade, because she's been associated with Bianca for so long. And now that there is a rift in that because she's injured and we know the union's not going to last forever, she will be able to show what she can do on her own. So I think those are 2 basically guarantees for 2025. Tiffany will definitely have more of a breakout year in 2025 as she is one of the most focused athletes they have on the roster. And with her having the briefcase, you'd like to imagine that she's not going to fail her cash in. So she's going to have more of a solo focus. Maybe it comes at the expense of Nia Jax. Maybe it comes at the expense of somebody else. And the Charlotte match is inevitable as long as they stay healthy. So I put her on that list as well. So those are the guarantees. As far as personal people I would like to see breakout in 2025, I mean, it's kind of crazy to say it, but come on, you gotta imagine that someone like Andrade finally moves up to the top of the card. There's very few workers as consistent as him. There are very few workers that bring such an elegant intensity as Andrade, and I would love to see him be a bigger focus on a Raw or a SmackDown. I would love to see Chad Gable break out properly this next year because he showed shines of it this year, but he's also had some muddy waters to walk through with recent losses and getting caught up in a lot of side stories. So you hope that he gets more prominence next year, possibly the U.S. Championship, the WWE's undisputed Universal title, because that's still 2 belts. Something. You want to imagine those guys will get paid off for all the grinding they've done this year. So those are my 5, 3 guarantees and 2 personal favorites. I do have more, but I have a low belief it's going to happen. Like, you'd love to see Michin obviously break out in 2025 because she broke out a bit in 2024. I'd like to see her be the women's US or Intercontinental champion. You'd like to see a Kairi Sane return to prominence. You'd like to see a Lyra Valkyria take the throne back again and really be respected amongst her top tier peers as opposed to just being kind of in between the tiers. So I guess you could throw those in there too. But those are the 5 that I think have the highest chance.
Since you have 5, I'm gonna match your 5 with mine, except I have a tag team in the middle of that. The Creed brothers.
Ooh.
The Creed brothers,
man,
are one of my breakout stars. I know they're a tag team, and I know it doesn't count as 5, but god damn it, the Creed brothers are definitely one. Obviously, Alpha Academy, the whole 3 or 4, including Ivy Nile. What I saw on SmackDown, we'll talk about that during the highlights of the week because I don't want to basically use the soliloquy to talk about it. But that is one thing that I know for a fact that they are going to break out this year. So I'll just put Alpha Academy as 1. I agree. I'm with you on Andrade. I'm with you on Melo. Odd number years, for whatever reason, have been kind to Fergal. So I'm going out on a limb by saying 2025 is the year of Fergal, goddammit.
There are rumblings about that he might get a renewed singles push in 2025.
Broadway Finn has been on his GNX energy for the last few weeks. He has not let go of the rope that is Damien Priest and that rift that they've had since last year when he should have been the WWE World Heavyweight Champion 2 times over against Seth Rollins. He's not letting that go. And if they do carry this into WrestleMania and Finn does get the win, that should be an indicator on where the Prince is going because we need Broadway Finn. And this might be a way that he can finally dismantle the Judgment Day from within and go out on his own. That is what I'm feeling. And that is what I think is going to happen. Before we move forward to another person that I have, I'll read GC's comment. He said this is last year. Trick and Melo have had good matches, but Carmelo can have a great match regardless of who he's in the ring with. I agree. Him and Cody part 2 was a really good indicator. And Cody facing off Chad, again, which we'll talk about in the highlights of the week, is another thing that I would like to highlight when we do talk about that. Trick, I believe in terms of his persona, is main roster ready, but I think he needs a little bit more seasoning on the mic. So,
and a bit in the ring. He needs to get a little bit more comfortable with himself.
He said, "You say it right, sir. It's prob." No, most definitely. Another person who I think is due for a breakout year is Selena Vega. We gotta show love to the ladies now because
absolutely,
Selena is in the same pocket where I feel Michin Mia Yim is.
Absolutely.
And they're both in the same coin. And I would like to tie Dakota Kai in it because she's now part of the, she's now in around another round for the Intercontinental Championship, which I hope she does win.
That would be nice.
There are women in that roster on both ends, with SmackDown and Raw, that deserve so much opportunities. And the fact that, for one, I will say this. For Mia Yim, she's capitalizing on her opportunities. For Zelina Vega, I feel like after Puerto Rico, like, she had so much momentum going into that, and it's been stop and start with Zelina. I just wish that they fully put the engine behind her and fully, like, give her the push that she justifiably deserves. And I know that there's only so many women that you could push up top. And I'm not asking to push her to become a champion. I'm just asking that you push her in terms of where you basically put, other women on the roster that may not have that main event type of status, especially on Raw. She could be a personality that you can put her as a secondary character in that mid card that can definitely give you a lot of flair and a lot of moments and matches on Raw, especially with the storylines that have been definitely coming together for WWE in the past year. So I think she's another person that deserves that opportunity. And to close with that, in terms of this question, in terms of breakout stars, and like your list too, those are people who I feel should be able to really showcase their skills. And I think that's what WWE is slowly starting to do this year. Even though, and we giving Tripp some hell in terms of how he usually takes long to get there, I think in the last couple of months, he's kind of shortcut some of those timeline periods in terms of how he's booking or where he's placing people. So I do like the fact that there are some small changes in getting people where they should be.
I actually will make a claim right now.
say it right, sir. The Prince.
Not the Prince. That's what I want. The Prince, because the X is there.
Yeah, you gotta put the X there. Yeah,
no, but I think there is a legitimate argument to be made that as the women continue to try and make and bring out more stars, it would be nice.
Yeah, man. We need more women stars, and we need more women stars that doesn't have to rely on. And unfortunately, Bianca's on that pedestal now, where it's not just Bianca. It's not.
Oh no, yeah, and I think that's why I want to introduce the idea of maybe bringing back Evolution this year in 2025. I think that the reason why I say that is because I feel like there's not enough spots to where you'll have 5 women's matches and 3 men's matches on a pay-per-view. You typically don't see women dominating the cards in terms of the number of matches they have and the number of spots they have on Raws, on SmackDowns. And I'm not saying they have to all the time either. I don't think you have to go to the opposite extreme either. But there's definitely not enough opportunities. And I think that with the Evolution pay-per-view, again, even if you host it in a smaller arena, or you host it in a Full Sail, or you host it in the same places you're hosting NXT on the road, it would bring in a lot of traffic. A lot of people would like to see these women get opportunities. You can build the stories throughout the year to those points to where the women get that, what do you call it? The meta girls, yes, they will do well in 2025, barring injury. Obviously, we're hoping everybody's healthy in 2025, but it would be nice to see a lot of the women from Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Because NXT is actually the opposite of our problems right now in the main roster. The show is basically a women's show, which is awesome. But for the main roster people, especially,
it's back to 2018 again, Ty.
Yeah, just imagine an event where Shayna Baszler gets a defining moment, an event where Zelina or Michin get that defining moment, an event where you get people who don't get the people who are put at the bridesmaid level instead of being the bride, getting those moments to shine and really make a case for why they should be used more often. And the fallout is obviously the most important after an event, but getting those moments, I think it would be nice to see an Evolution this year too, just because, there does feel like there's a imbalance there that they should be working on.
Hey, Ty, just as you say that, you know what that is, Ty?
What's that?
That's that Moy right there.
Yeah.
That's that Moy right there. That's Moy.
Muy bien.
That Muy bien. So to the people that are watching right now, the 120 people that are watching right now, and of course GC who's in the chat right now as well. Come on, guys, don't be shy, man. Chime in your thoughts in the comments and tell us your thoughts in terms of what you feel. This might definitely be a Monday discussion that I might post on Twitter this week in terms of a question. If there is another women's pay-per-view like Evolution again, this would be the perfect time, especially for those who are watching. Who would you want to see on that card? Do you think it's a good idea that the women should get another pay-per-view? Like, just chime your thoughts right now in the chat right now, as we continue to have this discussion, because what Ty brought up is very, very important and very, very eye-opening, because I do believe with the resources that WWE does have now, I don't think nothing kind of holds them back from not doing it again.
I will say, if they do a battle royal at Evolution again, please have an incentive for that. Please have like a reward, because that year of 2018 made me sick that we had 6 battle royals that all amounted to nothing.
No, but I will say this. If you are going to do, at least in my opinion, if you are to do Evolution again or Evolution 2 or however they want to call it, I would love for, one, the women only should be able to be in charge in terms of the book. Yeah, I do want to see in terms of more women being involved with the creative process, and as well as the wrestlers be more involved. Obviously, Triple H obviously is the head of everything in terms of him having a say in terms of how the show is going to go. But I do want more of the input coming from the stars and whomever they bring in to do this. I know for a fact Tripp is going to lean on people like Mickie James. He's going to lean in on people like Trish Stratus to come in and basically help with these women. And I have a feeling that Steph, in some form of way, not in terms of like her being, this, that, and the third, but just offer at least some words or some form of advice in terms of like, or input in terms of what.
Oh my God, I completely forgot. You just brought up a good point, because Mickie James, I know she's going to be a part of a new show coming up that's going to be Tough Enough-esque. But that also reminds me, the TNA Knockouts can also participate at this event too. I mean, if NWA can do Empower as often as they have the past few years, I don't see a reason why WWE can't. I don't see why.
And the fact that they have an open pipeline to go to talk to Mickie James, not because Nick Aldis is the GM, but Mickie James is damn near she is a WWE Hall of Famer. She's done a lot in the business, and there should be no reason under the God's hot sun that you don't utilize what she's given to the industry, what she's done for TNA wrestling, what she's done for NWA. Even though like Billy Corgan never really gave her that much of a credit, even though Tony Khan shat on how they did Empower, like. They have to get, she's done enough for women's wrestling. Her and Gail Kim as well. Got to put her name there as well, because it's not talked about enough in terms of what Gail Kim has done in women's wrestling. So, in that sense, I do believe you got to, lend your ear to a lot of these women and see what they want to do, because I think that it gives the women a lot more incentive, and it gives them, it makes them feel like they're part of the process rather than just saying, all right, this is what it is. And, you're just going by whatever this is.
But like, keep Tyson, kid. No. Keep Tyson and Finley, please.
Keep TJ, keep Finley, because Natalia's going to be part of the creative process regardless.
Yeah.
And she's going to help produce the matches along with TJ. So let that be of, a theme and have every woman that's participating in those matches, whether it be from NXT, whether it be from Raw, whether it be from SmackDown, or the Impact women or the Knockouts that are coming, like a Jordan Grace, who's done an incredible job in NXT, and you can't keep a star like that there for long. You'd want to see what they have to contribute in an all-women's pay-per-view for WWE. We had it the first time in 2018, but obviously that was just the first of many. We thought it was going to be the first of many. But because we have the resources to do it now, I can't see why not. They won't basically get the input again of a Mickie James, of a leader who people like, women who really love this and want to input on this.
It'd be a nice homecoming show. It'd sort of be like, remember that photo on Twitter of all the Knicks all together? Somebody had a really beautiful caption. They said that, I think it was Kazim Fumiade. He said the Knicks franchise is the only one that feels like a proper like college fraternity.
Yeah, because we got our shit together.
After so long, yes. And you know what? I think got our shit together. And I'd like to give a similar feeling to the women, where they all get to come together. You can have the past stars do multi-tag matches or be involved in big angles if appropriate. I just want that event there so that you can really use it as a springboard for other shows. And if you can have a Saturday night's main event, if you could have these smaller in-between specials, I don't see why Evolution can't be a special. Even if you don't want it to be a full-on premium live event, they're going to treat it like that anyway. So you might as well just have it go and have it do what it needs to do.
GC, Ty touched on Lyra in terms of having her be more important in 2025. So, like, listen, we over here at the Backstage Brawl, we cross our eyes and we dot our I's and cross our T's. So and speaking of that, obviously I got to get the comments out the way. No, but seriously, speaking of that, let's talk about the highlights of this past week. There is something that we do have to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it bad that I'm happy about it?
No.
Like, I know. Okay, so for y'all who haven't seen, you probably have heard if you've been on the airwaves of anything wrestling recently. Obviously, the New Day had a very decisive decision done on Raw, where we've seen Xavier and Kofi Kingston feud for so long. We're already out of potential. Yes, I agree with that, G Circus. Thank you, G Circus, the spiritual 7th or 8th member of this group. What do you call it? But yeah, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods have been having constant arguments, and they've been snapping on each other recently. As recently as the Raw before this, and we all thought it was going to come to a crashing blow during the New Day celebration for the 10 years, which credit to the New Day for being a stable that long. Most stables don't get to last that long in a decent spot, so absolutely, hats off to them. But then Big E came to be the peacemaker and try to encourage them to work together again, and even offered to sacrifice the new life he made for himself to come back and be the manager and be a motivator to help them. To which we saw a brotherhood be severed. And boy, did this have people wanting to punch their television. Triple H is getting repeated death threats as we speak in the most comedic fashion possible, because one of the biggest stables, one of the most prominent stables, and one of the best overall groups and teams in WWE history has been broken up in a manner that nobody feels they wanted because of how sentimental they've been. And I am the opposite. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I've been looking forward to something drastic happening to the New Day for a while, and I have my reasons. Ran, I know you want to get your thoughts out there. How were you? Where were you when the New Day officially split as it was?
It's funny because like when the split was happening, I was talking to Callie on the phone because she was working. No, she was actually home, and like I was looking at it on TV, and I was just like, no, they're not gonna do. Because I was just going around the house. I was like, damn, they're about to really do this, and then when I saw it, I was sitting down, I was watching the TV, I was flicking between that and the Nick game concurrently at the same time. And I was just like, Lord, please. Like, I hope like they do, like, I hope they don't jump E, and I hope E is not the one to, to be the one to turn on those guys. But see how it happened. It needed to happen the way it did. And they've been throwing the signs in terms of how they were going to do it in our faces the entire time. The Dragon Ball references between Goku Black and the Majin era, the Majin arc, they were definitely teasing how it was going down. And like, I thought nothing of it because I'm like, they're anime guys like ourselves, which is why we identify with the New Day so much. But how they use elements of the Dragon Ball arcs in terms of like how things kind of slip and turn, it was well done. It hurt. I ain't go for it. It hurt because it's like, yo, we've been riding with the same group for like 10 years, and it's rare for people that look like us to last as long without the usual turn, this and the third. I like how they were able to do that. I ain't gonna front. There was some truths from Xavier and Kofi.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that Chris Yim should have been targeted the way she did, but I guess that's just part of the anger. So I get it.
Chris caught it straight, and believe me, when people on Twitter was like, "Yo, like maybe Chris should be Mia's a mouthpiece from top to top," I'm like, nah, Mia don't need that. Like Mia don't need a mouthpiece. She don't need her sister to be the mouthpiece. She'll just come in because she's with the shits. But the way everything broke down, it just, all the storylines on WWE for whatever reason, every storyline has justification in terms of why people have their character motivations, which is basically what you've been saying. Whether they're face or heel, it just depends in terms of what their motivations as a character is. Doesn't mean that they're bad or good. Like Gunther, which we're going to get to in a moment. Those are things that are, a case-by-case situations, because obviously we're going to get to Drew and the Naomi stuff. But as it pertains to the New Day and what their motivations are, it's like he did leave. He had the opportunity to come back. If we're looking at the story objectively, he had an opportunity to come back at any time to be there for his boys. Even when he was healing, going through whatnot, he was gone. Like when Xavier and them was going through their stuff and losing tag team championship matches and not having that extra anchor to the point where they had to go get Odyssey Jones. We don't know how that turned out, but in the same token, like they were stuck. They were in limbo without their guy. So that frustration kind of, it creaks into their personal friendship, and it had to be brought to the surface. And I respect the fact that they did it in that way. And he was definitely the dead weight, and unfortunately, he had to live his life on his own. He has a Emmy nominated series that he put out. He's doing other things as well, and he's doing the pre-shows and other side projects as well. And of course that night, the day of, he penned a beautiful piece in the Players Tribune about his career and where he's at. Yep. That alone should have been
a red herring or some sort of
in terms of what was basically set to happen. And I remember, go.
Oh no, go ahead. My bad.
And then like when I was part of Black Wrestling's they usually hold a space on Twitter every Tuesday, mostly on every Tuesday when they usually hold it, and for Black Wrestling. And I remember, like, I'm not sure if it was Mimi who said it or someone else who said maybe he's using this angle as a way for his last match going to WrestleMania.
And that's something I do want to talk about, because you brought up the fact that Big E was dead weight. You bring up the fact that, like, well, obviously not as ruthless as I might have put it right there. I don't believe that, but for any chance. But I understand why they might feel that way. But the New Day were definitely in limbo. They were being filler for years, to where, like, when this storyline started, it got a lot of people excited off the idea that something different was happening with the New Day. People might not have necessarily wanted them to break up, but they definitely wanted to see a new, re-energized, refocused, reimagined New Day where they could give some life to, again, a concept that was starting to have its novelty wear off. And New Day's been like this for a couple of years. Even when Big E was there towards the end, when they had Kofi, but more in which, I mean, that is, I'm not going to lie, that's kind of fair. But even when Big E was there after losing the WWE Championship, which I'll never forgive Vince McMahon for doing, the way he did Kofi and Big E, both times with Brock, crazy. The black champion killer, Brock Lesnar, which he didn't intend to get that title, but good Lord, his track record's crazy.
He's 3 for 3 with black champions.
No, 4. Bobby and Rock.
Damn.
Yeah, Bobby and Rock.
Damn, he beat Bobby too for the championship?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Paul Heyman. God damn, he really is a champion killer.
But yeah, the way that they immediately after Kofi was taken down from the throne, back in a tag team. Big E gets taken down from the throne, back in a tag team, to the point where you question what was the point of giving them these runs in the first place? And for me, especially, seeing them be back in a tag team and being okay with it. Yes, absolutely. Being in a tag team and being okay with it, seemingly on TV, when they weren't outside of it, and the fact that they were being used to just be part of a tag division that was coming and going and fading in and out of a coma. I wanted to see where this was going to go, because I wanted them to have something they could sink their teeth into. And the fact that Kofi and Xavier decided to stay together as a team, they channeled their angers at each other and realized the root of their anger, while it was with each other, it all started with E for them. Now they're going to go in with a whole new purpose. And on the 10-year anniversary of the New Day returned to being heels. Something we haven't seen in such a long time. And that's something that's a situation, and you know me, I think about heel turns and face turns as, is it needed? Is it warranted? And in this situation, you can make the argument that it definitely was warranted for them. They were in need of that change, and an attitude change would have been fine for sure. But this gives them the attitude change that's appropriate, and it gives them something to sink their teeth into even more, to where it's fresh. It feels like something that should have happened some time ago. So for me, I give WWE credit for tying a lot of these blunders, even subtly, into the story. Finding a reason for why it happened, even though it's clearly their fault, and giving it a new life so that we could see something different. And I look forward to seeing what New Day will do in the tag division, because the tag division on Raw has been booty. Like, the War Raiders are back. That's great. The Creeds occasionally, do their thing. That's great. But now that we have a trade period coming up.
Who said the Creeds are staying on Raw?
Exactly. We're going to get to that pretty soon too.
Oh yeah.
With there being a new trade period coming up, who knows where New Day is going to go? But the one thing that I do know is that wherever New Day goes, they're going to be a problem for whoever is out there, because now the cuffs are off. It's not no holds barred, but you better bet that the rules are going to bend, brother. So I'm happy.
GC said Brock Lesnar potentially never coming back to WWE means will never hold a world title. God,
we'll see on that too, because who knows? What if the New Day also choose to help each other in singles endeavors? You can see Kofi and Woods cheating on each other's behalf to help them get U.S. and Intercontinental titles too. So, my bad. Go ahead with the comment.
Hey, no. You was cooking with that last bit. I ain't gonna hold you. Also, another thing that I saw this week that dissatisfied me was Seth Rollins. Sami Zayn.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, this is a minor complaint. God damn it.
Minor indeed. Why are we doing this?
I hated the fact that Seth used a small package to beat Sami Zayn on Raw. There, I
said you hear this?
I wasn't happy with it because could have beat him straight up. Could have listen?
I'm gonna go on mute. I'm gonna let you talk. Go ahead.
No. You should have used the finisher. God damn it. Hit him with a stomp, cheat, do something, but not no damn small package to win a goddamn match. Hell the fuck no. Hell no. Go Ty. We're getting to that in a moment. Ty, it's your turn. I'm done ranting. Mask. Senor Mask. Senor Mask. I'm done ranting. Oh man.
Sorry, I had to handle a situation. But yes, as you can hear, the silence that I gave, intentional or not, the silence that I gave was definitely appropriate. Look. So for those of you who don't know, Randy and I have had an ongoing series of matches across a bunch of WWE video games where we play as two characters that are very similar to one another. He usually plays as Shawn Michaels. I usually play as Eddie Guerrero. And that is a match that most people would have loved to have seen in real life. We almost got it at Mania 22, obviously. So we do the match a lot whenever the new edition of a game comes in, or if we play some of the old ones on my PS2. There have been a number of times where Randy has beaten me with the Sweet Chin music. There have also been a number of times where I've beaten Randy with a lasso or a frog splash or a pinning combination. Because of this, especially.
One match ended in a draw because both of us were passed out.
But Randy hates when I win with pinning combinations instead of a finisher. And he honestly sounds like someone who was you know what you sound like? You sound like two people went and knocked boots and they were ready for like the climax of a lifetime at the end, and it just ended with a whimper. And that is how you treat these matches, even though what I did was perfectly fine. It's a wrestling hold. It is a sign of intelligence. And roll-ups can be epic. Roll-ups can be smart. Roll-ups can piss you off depending on how they're used. But Randy always sees it as, damn it, that cheap trick, like a heel just rolled somebody up with the tights being pulled. Yeah. And I just sit there and I go, no, man, you just got outsmarted, and it's okay. And I don't like the way that Seth did the small package. But to see Randy lose his mind over Seth winning with a small package just made me sit there and go,
I didn't like it, man.
No, it's like, why? It's like, yeah, you're one of many. I sit here and I go, why do y'all don't like wrestling in your wrestling? what do you define as wrestling? Because if I use a small package,
I said the back.
right, the backwoods, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like the fact that there are people who actually want less wrestling in wrestling and still want to call it wrestling. Just say what you really feel. You're calling it in-ring entertainment, and you know what? That's okay. But you know what you can do? You could do like the F did in '02. Get the fuck out. I'm tired of this. Okay. Him too.
I ain't going front. He came back looking like the Undertaker in 05 because he going great.
Yeah,
he got to dye his hair.
He's got the same like orange, brown, black hair. Remember when Taker looked like Mufasa in 06? Yeah, like this. This guy.
That's how he came back. Drew came back like right after that match and gave him a Claymore.
I swear, Drew is like if Triple H and Taker fused and more of Triple H was prominent, but the Taker parts are just undeniable. It's crazy.
Hey, listen, man. What? Listen. The biggest hater of the year is back at Drew McIntyre, and he was like, listen, I couldn't let everybody else have that. I couldn't let KO take my title of the biggest hater. I had to come back and reclaim what was rightfully mine.
And he targeted bloodline people again, which has been a giant part of his anger the past couple of years. So that there's a consistency there. I'm interested to see where that goes.
It's a justified anger, and someone pointed out, he might be part of the crash out Big Three, because Seth might be the one to join soon. What is your thoughts on that? Quick thoughts on
Seth and Drew aligning themselves with each other.
Yeah,
or sympathizing with each other. I mean, I think Seth
also sympathizing.
Okay, if Seth sympathizes with Drew and kind of overlooks certain things he does, but then comes to a moral point of like, okay, yeah, this guy's going too far. Like, I get it, but you're right. That'll be a nice story for him. And considering the ties between Drew and Punk and Seth and Sami and Drew and Sami and Drew and Jay and Seth and Jay and Punk and Jay, because, the Blackhawks games and all this other stuff, it's a very interesting pool of potential. So I'm okay with that. I like how everybody's conflicted. That's what makes it interesting. And to be honest with you, I'm actually going to applaud WWE because similar to Solid Monster, I believe that there was no point in Drew and Punk being on the same show anymore. But when you really put this into perspective, who knows how they'll actually execute it. But at least for right now, there's a lot of potential to tie in that stuff they did earlier and not just have it blow off there. There may be they could use parts of that to push what they're going to do forward. So we'll see.
All right. So let's shift over to SmackDown. So let's talk about how well presented the Alpha Academy. Basically the Alpha Academy new version of it was presented with Chad Gable and American Made. How they were presented against Cody on SmackDown, and the fact that once again Cody as a champion taking somebody like a Chad Gable and having a dope ass match and building up another star. And even though Chad is already a made star, but this gives him another leg to stand on, because if that transfer portal is open, and if it is a possibility that he might be the one to transfer over to SmackDown and be a major player, this was a great way to kind of introduce that idea, considering the fact that obviously now Carmelo, the first pick, is being disgruntled, and him issuing a trade. And I like the fact that they're issuing the way I want to see the American Made versus the Northern Armory.
If we ever get All Ego, Ethan Page, and Josh Alexander to face,
I heard that might be a possibility of him coming to NXT.
That would be really cool. Honestly,
that would be really cool. But I said something on Friday that that you might agree with, Ty. I felt that Chad Gable, the way they presented Chad Gable on SmackDown with American Made, obviously gives people vibes of Angle and the Team Angle. I feel that Chad Gable is more than what people want to see him at, because people want to see him as Kurt Angle Jr. I think he's more than that. Yes, at the base form, there's a lot of similarities you can pick between Gable and Angle. It's crazy because their names somewhat are rhyme, but in the same token, Gable is a different animal than what Kurt is, and so is Gable. I think they do certain things similar, but I do think in terms of personality and what their motivations are at this stage, especially in this climate of professional wrestling, I think Gable has more of a leg to stand on in terms of like him going deeper into what Kurt wasn't able to at the height of his run in WWE before he went to TNA. So I think that he has a much better leg to stand on in terms of where he could possibly push that to. And that was a good way for him to kind of be integrated, or basically a nice little preview on SmackDown. At least those are my thoughts. What do you think about that?
Well, for one, at the top, of course, I agree with you. I feel like you're in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Josh versus Chad, you don't. You're speaking my language.
As E would say, you putting too much little dip on your chip, bro, my brother. That's too much.
No, but that is indeed moy. That's what that is right there. That is very moy.
It's very moy.
Very, very. Now, I will say, I do agree that they are similar, but this is a natural thing that fans of any franchise, of any entity, of any concept do. There's always going to be overlap between generations. You're always going to see people who are similar to people you've seen in the past or remind you of things of the past. And that familiarity can bring people to a new fan base. And that's a cool thing. But that familiarity can also blind people to the fact that this person isn't the person you saw before. And a lot of people agree. Yes, Chad Gable can definitely be, as G Circus is saying here, the successor to a Kurt Angle, but that's the key. To your point, I want a successor, not a clone. Chad Gable can fill a very similar void that Kurt did years ago. A void that they tried to have Jack Swagger fill, and it didn't work. You can have someone like, and I still think they should have pushed him like Steve Williams. That probably would have helped Swagger, although I don't want to help Swagger at this point. But to be fair, Chad Gable can fill that void, yes, but he doesn't need to be that person. I'm going to use an example that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with, and they're going to understand. Maybe two. Shawn Michaels has been duplicated a number of different times in multiple different companies for multiple different reasons, and multiple different versions of Shawn, mind you. One of the most interesting ones for me was John Morrison. And I think that John Morrison is a good example of what Chad Gable could be and beyond if Gable's given more opportunities. Not to say he'll have the same career as Morrison. I want him to do better than Morrison. But Morrison was Shawn Michaels-esque without losing himself. You saw this young, brash brunette who looked like a movie star doing athletic moves for his time. Morrison was far more athletic showed himself to be far more of a high flyer and an athlete than Shawn was. Not to take anything away from Shawn, because he was a definite and legitimate athlete. But what Morrison was for the late 2000s and early 2010s is what Shawn was for the 90s in terms of performance, in terms of what he was able to do, in terms of how he was able to make people look good and the opportunities he had. I love John Morrison on SmackDown, but I love the fact that Morrison was similar to someone I knew. You can make the comparisons. You can look forward to the day those two meet because they were wrestling at the same time, but he wasn't a copy. It was familiar enough that you felt at home, but different enough that you could appreciate them for who they were. And the only thing that works against Chad right now is the way that he's been presented as this sort of Kurt, where we see the Olympic background, we see the amateur background, the technical proficiency, the crispness, his willingness to take bumps that most wrestlers nowadays kind of avoid or do worse and take more dangerous bumps. There's this nice balance, this gruesome way that this man takes a crossroads or a DDT, makes you go, I remember. And a guy like Chad Gable being that perfect kind of middle ground for a lot of people is awesome. And it's okay that he has a stable of collegiate wrestlers with him. That's fine. He could be similar to Team Angle. Being similar is not a problem. Similar can even be a great thing. But what I want to see for Chad Gable in 2025 is him show more of who he is, not only in his personality, but in his moveset. Because if you look at the way this man wrestles, he's like a hybrid of Kurt Angle and Dynamite Kid, which sounds like a fucking problem.
It's a cheat code.
That is a cheat, but he leans so much into the Kurt stuff with the moonsault and the ankle lock. I want Chad Gable to go back to doing. I want his chaos theory to be his finish, or for him to have a more unique finish. He has a lot of great throwaway moves, like the chaos theory, the deadlift German, the cliffhanger DDT, but he needs to put his own stamp on his legacy soon. Otherwise, I think he'll be stuck in that flux.
Here's what I think about. Oh, hold on, let me read GC's comment real quick before I give you my take. He said, "Chad is my hero because he brought back the Doug Williams rolling chaos theory."
I hear you, man. I'm curious
sure.
if you've seen Konosuke Takeshita's in AEW, because that man be rolling too.
And some people listen, man. Takeshi's shit is pretty good too. But as it pertains to Chad Gable, before we move on to finish close out SmackDown, the one thing I've seen from Chad, I think the fact that what he's done on Raw in the past year and some change, especially going against Gunther, going against Sami, having those moments, getting so close to the IC title, I think coming to SmackDown will give him that breath of fresh air to basically do carte blanche. And then with Ivy now being added on the roster, I think it gives him another woman that can mix it up with the already established females on SmackDown. Because I do believe as of right now, as it pertains, SmackDown has a stronger women's division and mid-card scene on the men's side than Raw does at the moment. Not saying it's weak. I say it's more structured because it's easier to put certain people in certain spots and they can thrive in, and it is not more of a stop or start, as not more of a question mark when you put them in the position as it pertains to Raw at the current moment. That's what I feel, at least for me. And the way it helps Gable and this transfer portal, if they're doing it, the way that's being talked about, I do think this aspect of it can help shape up and put certain people that could be on Raw that could benefit more so, which is why I think that if there is something like a trade coming in, like this is their trading deadline, a Carmelo to Raw wouldn't be too bad, because now he can be away from Andrade because he had that 2 to 3 month, feud, which was a great 7 matchup series between them, and of course going through for the United States Championship. But now he goes to Raw. He's a little bit in uncharted waters, but he has some familiarity with a Braun Breaker, a former guy he faced off against in NXT, and then of course other guys on that roster that he can mix it up with. As a young, pugnacious dude trying to make a name for himself, if he's not able to do it on SmackDown. Now, keeping with the SmackDown motif, obviously we talked about LA Knight prior to the show about him losing his United States Championship. For me, I felt that it was time, and seeing what Shinsuke was able to do, and obviously with that, it creates more of a storyline with LA Knight going into 2025. Bloodline not quite done with LA Knight because of what he said prior to the Survivor Series. What is your take on what they're doing with LA Knight and of course Shinsuke Nakamura so far in his United States title reign?
I don't know when this trade thing is happening or when this talent switch is happening. If they become a tag team on SmackDown, that's actually quite a possibility. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, considering how the last 7-person series happened in WWE history, yeah, that's not out of the woods. But
do they really need to though?
No, but I think a lot of people would kill to see Andrade and Melo versus the Motor City Machine Guns and DIY. It sounds like a modern wrestling fan's wet dream that they might not even know they need. It's like that dream you didn't expect to have, but you go, damn, I want to have that again, for a lot of those fans. So
yeah, if only they let go of Ray Phoenix, we'd be having that right now with a different team, but that's a different conversation for another day off the air. Continue, Ty.
Well, yeah, I'm going back to LA Knight. LA Knight's an interesting case because he's kind of, it's not so much that he can't ascend. It feels like he can't ascend right now because it feels like the championship that Cody Rhodes is holding is on lock for the rest of time. It feels like that title has been destined to be put in a position where it has to revolve around what Cody's immediately doing or the Samoan invasion of the bloodline. And it's something that like has been, I've been fuming at this for a while because that's part of the reason why the title reign doesn't feel as eventful as it should on a consistent basis. The fact that it's not going anywhere. There's not much reason to get invested in some of these opportunities and for other feuds, because you know that no matter how well they look, there is a ceiling, and those guys can't really feel on the same level of Cody Rhodes or feel like his true contemporaries, at least the way they're presented on TV, because you know that belt is destined for somebody else. It's betrothed for something else, or at least you feel like it is, even if it may not be. Who knows? But when it comes to LA Knight, there's no reason why he shouldn't be there. Him having this situation with the bloodline now where they attacked him, he's going to get his lick back. And in my opinion, the best way to have LA Knight go forward is to have LA Knight get a decisive victory over Solo Sikoa. Further add the Solo Sikoa's downfall as the tribal chief, and then get drafted to Raw so that Solo can't do anything about it. And that should sting. Because if Solo were to lose to LA Knight in a decisive fashion, it helps LA Knight's momentum because he just beat the tribal chief. And it also gives LA Knight the chance to jump to Raw and find new pastures over there, since the title scene seems more open there. And to be quite honest with you, if we were to see LA Knight versus Gunther, which I know a lot of people have not had on their bingo card, you can't find two different, in terms of a feud or a matchup, there are very few 1v1s that feel like opposite philosophies of pro wrestling than those two. And I think they mesh way too well together.
He has to get in line because Finn already called dibs.
No, I know. I'm saying down the road. I'm saying down the road.
No. Because right now, the way Finn is acting right now, he's like, listen, nobody gets pulled to Gunther but me. I don't care who you are.
That would be an interesting, because we don't know what Gunther's WrestleMania match is going to be, and we're under the impression he's not going to possibly lose this belt till Mania. Assuming that he doesn't lose it before Mania, and he does lose it at Mania, I think LA Knight is a fine challenger for the guy, because for LA Knight to go from beating AJ Styles last year, grinding with the US Championship to the best he was allowed to this year, and then, I say last year as in earlier this year with AJ, but you get to the point where LA Knight, the guy who embodies sports entertainment to a lot of wrestling fans, goes up against this truer wrestler in Gunther. I think that does a lot for both men and how they carry themselves, and that just approach clash of a wrestler is interesting.
I raise you that, and I give you LA Knight versus John Cena for a different reason. You know,
Okay.
like I'll flip it because of the fact that for Gunther, he's gonna have a Rose Gallery people coming after him for that championship, whether it be CM Punk, whether it be, even though we're gonna get Punk and Seth, but I just don't feel that Damien is quite done yet. And the way they've been trekking with Damien, I don't think he's out of that bracket quite yet. And with Finn basically on the heels, at least for now. I would say down the line, if LA Knight does happen to go to Raw and Gunther's still possibly champion after WrestleMania, I would say push that more so for SummerSlam. But for WrestleMania, for whatever reason, I do feel like if he's going through this situation right now with the bloodline, what better way to basically get a helping hand if he doesn't really have help backstage than to have a returning John Cena who's going to have a 2025 run anyway. Have him basically come in, finish his last bit with the bloodline, but at the same time, LA Knight's like, I don't really need your help. He's on the third, and it somehow leads to a little bit of a rift, which kind of does bleed into him asking for a match at WrestleMania. And what better way for a star that's on his way out, helping a star on the way up, than having a John Cena versus LA Knight? Like, the story could write itself. It's, you know, the way LA Knight is on the mic, to see that interaction with them two, and to see Cena really flex his chops in a more fleshed out time period rather than him just being here for a couple of weeks and then just leaving. Cena has a year of his retirement tour to really sink his teeth into his opponents and find ways to kind of create stories and narratives with them. So that's why I kind of push more so for LA and Cena going at each other at WrestleMania. This will be the iteration process of him doing that. And with Cena, him being, you know, the grandstander and the hot dogger and the hero that everyone loves, you know, that they see Cody Rhodes to be, this is Cena's one last hurrah to basically play the hero, but at the same time, like, bring somebody up who has been doing this for 20 plus years, but hasn't had that light shown on him. And what better way to do that by having someone who's had all the opportunities, who's been the main event, who's won the Royal Rumble, who's won all these championships, and who's on his way out, what better way for someone to give back by doing just that? That's why I kind of pushed back on what you know. It's a great idea for having him versus Gunther, but I'll probably save that for more so down the road. But if we're going into 2025, and WrestleMania is that point to see if you for the showcase of Immortals, what better way to kind of make a name for yourself?
You know what? I like what you did there. I'll raise you one better. I think that LA Knight's WrestleMania match.
Hey, chill. Finn will beat Gunther, goddammit. He's been ducking him for the last 4 years.
He could be referring to Damien on that one, but I will raise you one better.
All right.
LA Knight and John Cena teaming together to face the Paul brothers at WrestleMania. Now, I say this because John Cena is going to need to get warmed up, to do these matches down the line, right? He's going to be here all 2025. What better way to start him off than to work with people that he can kind of get his stuff in there? I think that if you have LA Knight, who's constantly said, I don't need your help, have his defining WrestleMania moment be with John Cena, that will like stick at his craw, so to speak. And he'll want to redefine how people see him, because him being US champion was a step in the right direction, but he's yet to really reach his potential still. That's one of his overarching stories. So if LA Knight were to have a moment where he's getting beat down by the Pauls and John Cena came to help him, first of all, the pop would be insane. Second of all, the moment of LA Knight and Cena teaming together again would be like, okay, we're coming back to a story we've established before, as you've mentioned. And then third, a lot of people want to see John Cena and Logan Paul face each other. And this is a good excuse to do that without giving away too much, because Cena's going to be having more regular matches in 2025. You could always do a John Cena open challenge where he gets to have some of those rematches in between. But as far as an overarching story, the idea that Cena is constantly helping LA Knight and that he can't achieve much on his own, especially the way that he lost the championship recently, even though it wasn't his fault, he's going to beat himself up over it. LA Knight's going to have that chip on his shoulder again. And that's honestly when he's at his best. That's when he's the most compelling. And if he has to prove it to himself that he can be seen in a similar light to a Cena, that'll give him more reason to face a Cena to prove himself. And he says, listen, I don't need you as a partner, but I will use you as an example of why I should be at the top of the card when I face you. And you get multiple matches out of that. You get the debut of Jake Paul as an actual wrestler, which can tie into the Netflix thing that happened a month ago with Mike Tyson. You get the possibility of Mike Tyson, because Lord knows the Pauls aren't going to play fair, and to have Mike Tyson appear at Mania and raise Cena and LA Knight's hand sounds like a fever dream. But can you imagine the moment and what that'll do for an LA Knight? What a photo op that would be. And then you obviously can get the singles in between, the Cena versus Jake Paul, the Cena versus Logan Paul, the LA Knight to return his feud with Logan Paul. Because remember, Logan could have a gripe with LA being like, hey, I just tried to get my US championship back. I was like, I had no problem coming back and taking my belt, but they said I have to actually wrestle to face Shinsuke. I have to actually earn it. Do you know who I am? I'm Logan Paul. I shouldn't have to do this. And the reason why I have to do this is because of you. The reason why I have to do this is because of you, LA Knight. And you tie all those stories together.
Oh, what happened, Jay? Oh, you saw the episode? Yeah. I'll talk to you about that later. Listen, man. Listen, he's like Randy Orton 09, man. Just comes out of nowhere. We'll talk about it later time.
Almost. But yeah.
Nah, they were talking about Cobra Kai. They just saw something, and I was like, yeah, good shit.
But yeah, that's what I'll raise you. If we don't get,
that's Moy. That's very Moy. I respect that.
I might have just revealed something. Maybe I know more than I think.
Nah. That's a pretty. I mess with it because it's like if they do go that route, it's crazy because every time we say something that might happen on this show, it ends up happening and we never get any credit for it. But either way.
I just want to see Mike Tyson beating up Logan Paul's goons because they always show up in Logan Paul's matches. So why wouldn't they show up in the tag match? Because they're not going to play fair. Mike Tyson just knocking out goons left and right at WrestleMania would be awesome.
You'll see K-Sai, you'll see ISO Speed. Don't be surprised if you see Kai Cenat at some point flying.
Good lord.
Don't be surprised if you see one of them streamers come out. This is the era of streamers, so
They want more celebrity involvement. That would be a cool way to do it.
They want more celebrity involvement, and this would be a good way to, as much as I detest the polls, this would be a great way to basically, big up their brand as well, especially in the world of boxing for what Jake does. And for Logan, this would be a great way for him to come back. Obviously, now he's on paternal leave because he just had a kid. This would be a good way to kind of like, when that time period does come around, him and LA Knight get a chance to finish out this story with the addition of his brother and John Cena. I do like that idea. So quickly, let's just go through this quick takes. I want your quick takes in terms of what happened this past week on Friday. What was your thoughts on Naomi getting eliminated in the United States Championship tournament, and of course that backstage interaction with Bianca Belair? What's your thoughts about that? Quickly.
Bianca sold me on her ribs being hurt, the way she was beaten down. Feel bad for her on that front. I do find it interesting Naomi got eliminated. Matt's prediction, which we thought was the most predictable prediction, is not coming true. So part of me is starting to see the appeal of Christ. No, I'm playing. We've always been down with Jesus. But still, what do you call it? It makes me question a lot, but it does make it more interesting. So now that the most predictable outcome is out, I'm interested to see where we're going with it.
All right. As well, obviously, the Motor City Machine Guns, they lost their tag team championships this week due to Johnny Gargano finally coming to reason from Tommaso Ciampa to make a decision to choose winning over friendships, and definitely turning on his boys from TNA so that they can once again hold tag team gold in the WWE. What's your quick takes on that, Ty?
I love it. Actually, and this is a guy who's not a fan of DIY as a unit outside of their initial run in NXT. I like it because I think Johnny Gargano's best matches happen when he is a what? You know what?
He's talking about the streamer.
Give Genocide Circus a pen, bro. But yes, I like it.
Yes.
Johnny Gargano during his days as the Way had some of the most tolerable matches that I could see of Gargano, so I hope it's more in that vein. As far as the Motor City Machine Guns losing so early, this is not necessarily a bad thing for them because I don't believe they're going to be without gold for long. Again, I mentioned this in a previous episode. They're in a state where they're trying to show the audience who they are. And a lot of times, if you just have them keep beating every single team, it increases. It basically fast forwards them to peaking early. So to constantly have them getting it out of the mud is really going to build them as these gritty underdogs or these gritty ass veterans who know how to get themselves out of bad situations and earn the respect of the WWE brick by brick. So I'm not against it. I think it's a good thing. And it also gives Gargano and Ciampa something to do as opposed to just waiting on a miracle. So it makes it more intriguing. And I couldn't sit here and say that I'm against this when they executed it so well. And when I'm asking for other championship reigns to have more of this, more of these title hot potatoes that help actually push stories as opposed to just having them happen for no reason. So,
ooh, you just gave me an idea for an icebreaker for next week in terms of title contention. I didn't talk about this much. I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier in the episode. In terms of Raw, I just want to go back to Raw real quick. What did you think about Dakota Kai moving on into the Intercontinental Championship tournament on Raw?
I'm happy for her because her and her former Team Kick member Nixon Noel, we knew her as Tegan Knox, were constantly stifled by injuries that no one had asked for, but these freak accidents kept happening to them and stopping them from getting opportunities that they deserved. And I can only imagine the emotional and mental damage it did to Dakota during those moments where she was wondering whether any of this was worth it. We saw her on social media pleading for a chance. We've seen her for years grind things out and oftentimes play the third best in a group or play the voice of a group, but never getting the respect of a group. And I think that to see her actually shining on her own while being a part of Damage Control and not being outshined by Io, but having her own lane to play in making her own legacy finally is great. I hope that she is healthy. I hope that she's paced well. And I hope that she has something similar to what we saw with Steph Curry about a decade ago, where people basically casted him out, saying he had glass ankles, and he went on to be one of the names you talk about with basketball. I hope Dakota Kai can get at least half, if not a good chunk of that success. And if that happens, I think it only helps the company.
First of all, shout out to the women on both shows who are killing it in these tournament matches for the Intercontinental and United States Championship, respectively. They are killing. They're doing a great job in terms of what they're doing. For me personally, I can't be any prouder in terms of what they've been able to showcase because they're really going after it. And that's all you ask for when you have these opportunities being given, is the fact that, yes, storytelling is a very important factor of it, but the wrestling aspect of it has really been up to par in terms of where you want it to be. Because obviously for WWE, it's been an imperfect balance in terms of where you see things over the last couple of years. Slowly but surely, I'm starting to see Trips' vision coming to fruition, in terms of what he tried to do in NXT and bringing it onto the main roster, because we've had these discussions before in terms of what would happen if he had that control. Now we're starting to see bits and pieces of what he was able to do when he was at Full Sail on the main roster. I just hope that over time, he knows when to pull it, when to push it, and when to basically execute when it's time, for those main things. Last thing, let's talk about Saturday night's main event and Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes in that feud. How do you see this going for Kevin Owens? Obviously, we know Kevin is in the right in terms of that. But with Cody, do you think Cody has every reason to be scared or nervous as it pertains to his reign right now and underestimating Kevin Owens?
If WWE does the right thing, then yes. And what I mean by that is take the belt off of Cody Rhodes for this foreseeable future. And I know some people might not like that. There might be some people chanting huzzah, but hear me out. Kevin Owens winning the Universal WWE Undisputed Federation title is something that I think would make a lot of sense for his road to WrestleMania, because it is something that he has been trying to get for years. For him to do it against a man who aligned himself with the people that he has been fighting for 4 years sounds too perfect on paper. He feels justified, and I know the way that I would have it done. And I think it'd be a great angle to lead into the WrestleMania season, officially with Rumble season. And here's what I would have happen. I would have Kevin Owens winning this Universal Championship mirror the way that he won the first one, except this time I would switch out the Evolution member. I would have Cody Rhodes be on the verge of putting Kevin Owens away and have Randy Orton come in, RKO Cody. Kevin looks in disbelief and then squirms over to pin Cody for the championship. And Kevin hightails it out of there because he doesn't know if Randy's still going to take things out on him. And I would have it be a scenario where Randy Orton, after all the time he was off of TV, was able to reflect on where everything went wrong, why Kevin attacked him, and he'll sit there and realize, I don't really mess with Kevin, but I can't say that I disagree. The Bloodline took a year off my career. The Bloodline made me miss WrestleMania for the first time in my career. The Bloodline almost took my career away from me. I'm lucky to be back, and you had the nerve to align yourself with them because you thought it was the right thing to do. And Randy adopts a similar mentality to Kevin Owens, but it hits even deeper for Randy because he's known Cody Rhodes since he started. And it hits deeper for Randy because despite the fact that, once upon a time ago, Cody was his whooping boy, he's always respected Cody. He's gone on podcasts with Cody talking about how much he loves what he's been able to do. He has fully turned a leaf when it comes to Cody. And for Cody to do that to him hurts almost as emotionally as it does for Kevin. And for Kevin to be gifted a championship by a guy he took out weeks ago, it don't get any more heel than that. And for Randy Orton to go full-on psychotic on someone who he thought was his friend, the idea that you could get a mean machine of Randy Orton again, but instead of you going, oh, he's evil for evil's sake, but now he's justified, I don't think people are ready for the veins to pop out of that man's head when he has a good reason to want to kill somebody.
Nah, that's for sure, man.
Imagine the way the crowd would look. Imagine the final shot of Randy Orton standing over Cody's body as Kevin celebrates with the championship, damn near on the stage, escaping, knowing that he just cheated death and came out with a crown. That, to me, is the perfect way to end Saturday night's main event, and I think they should do it.
Hey, all I know is the fact that next week, Saturday night's main event is being built like a pay-per-view, even though it's on live TV. Next week, it's on it's on live TV. It's on NBC. It's on the Bird app. I just feel like the way they're building this event, it's good to see that they're doing that because it does take away from the idea, the fact that, oh, there's going to be a December pay-per-view December 3rd that you tune into. It's a specialized show that can showcase a lot more, and I can't wait to see how Saturday night's main event will turn out next week. Obviously, it's in our back of the woods in New York.
I do want to offer one more thing.
What's up?
If they do it correctly, they can set up for Cody and Randy at WrestleMania, and they can set up for Kevin and Sami potentially at WrestleMania too. Because if Kevin holds the belt going into Mania, remember Sami Zayn's original storyline this year was him proving himself, showing his worth, and also wanting to go after the world championship. Now we were so focused on him going after Gunther's title that we never even considered the idea of him going after Cody's. And if Kevin is holding Cody's, and last night Kevin did make mention of the fact that he will deal with Sami at a later point. I'm just saying, if you set up the Rumble season that way, I think we have a clear-cut winner for the Rumble for the men if Sami is able to pull it off. And I think that Sami having to choose whether he wants to prove himself to Gunther again or go after Kevin Owens, and Kevin making the decision for him by attacking him and forcing Sami's hand, we might see the first person in WWE history to triple crown at WrestleMania in consecutive years.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Because remember, he main evented, won the tag titles. Last year, won the Intercontinental title. Being in a marquee match at WrestleMania for the World Championship, the premier belt in WWE, and winning it from his best friend. Also avenging losing the NXT title all those years ago. The fact that Kevin's once again forcing his hand. Sami finally reaches the summit. I can't honestly, I can't think of anything better. Because if you do it that way, you get Orton and Cody, all the history at WrestleMania. You get Rock Roman. You get Sami Kevin. You can get Gunther versus... we're still figuring that one out.
Fergal.
But maybe Fergal and Damien. Maybe that's where Fergal wins the championship. There's a lot. There's so much right there. And they're 2 nights worth of this. So the idea that Sami could do it and Kevin can finally walk into Mania, finally have a championship reign that isn't overshadowed by somebody else, and then offer that, and then the story has to continue after that too.
It does. So
depending on where the draft pools go, depending on where the talent go, depending on where things happen, if they pull the trigger on Orton stopping Cody at Saturday night's main event, you get 2 marquee matches that you can work towards for WrestleMania. And I couldn't ask for anything more.
That's very more. And with that said, that pretty much ends our show this week here at the Brawl for the Broadcast, episode 160, titled The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. This was a pretty good show this week in terms of the talks that we had this week. Good shit, Ty.
They have no idea that I'm dying on the inside with this. I've been doing this sick, y'all. I sacrificed for this.
This is Ty's flu game coming on and doing this. Shout out to the people, the 188 people that has been watching this stream over the last hour and some change. Shout out to GC, shout out to Reptar, shout out to everybody that's shared or liked our show this week. Damn, Ty, yeah, we do gotta get you off the air and some tussle. Next week, I haven't decided yet whether I'm gonna do a live streaming event for Saturday night's main event, but I do know that we're gonna be on the air next week. I'll pretty much figure it out during the week. But with that said, It's been a good episode. Thank you to everybody. Please follow us on all socials at Twitter, _Brawl. We're on Blue Sky at the Backstage Brawl, Facebook, the Backstage Brawl, as well as Instagram. Our YouTube is the Backstage Brawl. Please like, subscribe, share our content. That said, man, it's been episode 160. We've been on the air for quite some time. Shout out to everybody from the sports hit list to shop business to us here at the Backstage Brawl. I am the host and moderator, the People's Champion, aka the Final Boss, aka Shop Biz Ronnie. This is Soft Forest, aka Kid Ty,
Feel like the Xbox before the red ring of death,
aka the Mask, who is currently under the weather. Big E, BK, Matt. Obviously they're not here this week, but shout out to the brothers as well. We will see you guys next week as we'll talk Saturday night's main event and a much other stuff as we close out 2024. With that said, it's been a good episode today. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with us. We are pretty much done. See you guys soon.
Beat it. Wash your ass.
Bye.